My name is Abigail Reynolds, and I'm 28 years old. Standing at Boston Logan International Airport, clutching my boarding pass to San Diego, I couldn't believe what I'd just done. My phone buzzed with another angry text from my mother, demanding to know how I could abandon 30 hungry relatives on Thanksgiving. After years of being the family doormat, something inside me finally snapped. I chose myself for once, and the fallout was nuclear. Before I dive into why I fled across the country rather than baste another turkey, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to see more stories about breaking free from family expectations. I've always been the responsible one in the Reynolds family. The eldest of 3 children, I learned early that different standards applied to me versus my younger siblings, Ryan and Heather. While they enjoyed their childhoods, I was helping mom with dinner, doing extra chores, and being told to set a good example. Don't get me wrong, I love my family, but looking back, I can see how the pattern started. When Ryan forgot his homework, my parents would shrug it off. Boys will be boys, they'd say. When Heather missed curfew, she'd flash those puppy dog eyes, and all would be forgiven. But if I got anything less than an A on a test? The disappointment was palpable. We expect more from you, Abigail, my father would say, as if my worth was tied to perfection. My mother, Margaret, is what you'd call a traditionalist. She believes family comes first, always. My father, James, is her steadfast supporter. Whatever mom says goes, and dad enforces it with his silence or agreement. They're not bad people, just products of their upbringing who never questioned whether their expectations were fair. College should have been my escape. I chose Boston University, 4 hours from our Connecticut home, hoping distance would give me breathing room. But even then, I was expected to come home for every holiday, birthday, and random family gathering. My roommates would tell stories about their wild spring breaks in Cancun, while I was driving home to help prepare Easter dinner. During those college years, my role as family chef gradually solidified. It started innocently enough. I'd always enjoyed baking and had a knack for cooking. Mom would ask me to just help with the stuffing or maybe take care of the desserts. But each holiday, my responsibilities grew. By the time I graduated and landed my marketing job in Boston, the transformation was complete. Holidays weren't holidays anymore, they were work assignments. I'd arrive days before any celebration, shopping list in hand, while Ryan and Heather would breeze in minutes before dinner was served. Last Thanksgiving was the previous benchmark of family exploitation. 22 people, 3 days of cooking, and exactly 0 offers of genuine help. Sure, Mom would flutter around the kitchen, moving my perfectly arranged ingredients and offering unsolicited advice. The turkey looks dry, dear, she'd say, though it hadn't even gone into the oven yet. Dad would poke his head in occasionally, grab a beer, and ask when dinner would be ready. Ryan, now 26 and working in finance in New York, spent the day watching football and complaining that the appetizers were running low. Heather, 24 and finding herself through a series of abandoned career starts, was too busy taking Instagram photos of the food to actually help prepare it. The extended family was even worse. Aunt Laura, Mom's sister, would critique every dish while contributing nothing but a store-bought pie. Uncle Dave would make inappropriate jokes about when I was going to find a man who appreciates a woman who can cook. Cousins, second cousins, and random neighbors would fill our house, eating the food I'd spent days preparing, leaving messes I'd inevitably clean up. By the end of last Thanksgiving, I was exhausted, underappreciated, and harboring a growing resentment. As I scrubbed dried gravy off the stovetop at 11 p.m. while everyone else was in food comas or had already left, I remembered thinking, never again. But like all momentary revelations, it faded as life resumed its normal pace. Throughout the year, family dynamics continued their predictable pattern. I'd drive home for Mother's Day, cooking brunch, Father's Day, grilling, 4th of July, entire barbecue spread, and various birthdays, each requiring a homemade cake to Mom's specifications. Each time, I'd tell myself it was just one day, just a few hours of effort to make my family happy. What they didn't see, or chose not to see, was the toll it was taking. The vacation days I'd use for prep rather than actual vacations. The Sunday evenings spent meal planning for their events instead of having a social life of my own. The fact that at 28, my dating life was practically non-existent because who has time to meet someone when every free weekend is dedicated to family obligations? I'd tried setting boundaries in small ways. Once, I suggested ordering pizza for a casual family gathering. You'd think I'd proposed serving roadkill. Another time, I couldn't come home for a cousin's birthday due to a work deadline. My mother didn't speak to me for a week. As October rolled into November this year, I felt the familiar dread building. Thanksgiving was coming, and with it, all the expectations, work, and inevitable disappointment when my efforts went unrecognized. But this year would prove to be different, though I didn't know it yet. The seeds of change had been planted, they just needed the right conditions to grow. Part 3, The Unreasonable Expectation. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I was riding high on professional success. After 2 years of 70-hour work weeks, late nights, and sacrificed weekends, I'd finally been promoted to senior marketing manager at my firm. The promotion came with more responsibility, a team to lead, and a major holiday campaign to oversee. For once, my professional life was taking precedence over family obligations, and I was thriving. That's when the call came. Mom's name flashed on my phone one Tuesday evening as I was reviewing campaign materials. "Abigail, darling, just checking in about Thanksgiving plans," she began, her voice carrying that familiar tone of assumed agreement. "Hey, Mom. I was actually going to call you. Work's been crazy with this promotion, so I might need to scale back my cooking duties this year," I said, attempting to establish a boundary early. Her laugh tinkled through the phone. "Oh, don't be silly. Everyone's looking forward to your maple-glazed turkey. You can't disappoint the family." "How many people are we expecting?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Well, that's partly why I'm calling. The guest list has grown a bit this year." "How much is a bit?" I pressed. "Just 30 people, dear." I nearly dropped my phone. 30? Last year was 22, and that was already too many. "Well, Uncle Dave's new wife has 3 adult children, all bringing partners. And your father invited his golf buddies since they're all alone for the holiday. Oh, and Cousin Megan had twins, so that's 2 more. Mom, that's not a bit more, that's almost 50% more people." "You'll figure it out, you always do." Now, about the menu. What followed was a detailed list of demands that would make a 5-star restaurant chef break into a cold sweat. Traditional turkey and ham were non-negotiable. Mashed potatoes had to be hand-whipped, never using a mixer because you can taste the difference. 5 different vegetable sides, 3 types of stuffing, homemade cranberry sauce, the kind with orange zest that takes hours, and at least 6 dessert options. Then came the dietary restrictions. Uncle Dave's new wife was gluten-free. One of her children was vegan. Dad's golf buddy was diabetic. Cousin Rachel was doing keto. Aunt Laura was now avoiding nightshades, whatever that meant. "I think we should consider catering some of the dishes," I suggested carefully. "Or maybe doing potluck style where everyone brings something." Mom's sharp intake of breath told me I'd committed holiday heresy. Catering? For Thanksgiving? What would Grandma Reynolds say? Besides, no one makes stuffing like you do, honey. But Mom, with my new promotion. This promotion isn't going to keep you warm at night, Abigail. Family is what matters. Besides, everyone has busy jobs. Ryan is closing a huge deal, but he's still coming. Is he helping with dinner? I asked, already knowing the answer. You know your brother. He's not exactly domestic. But he's bringing an expensive wine. The conversation with Dad later that evening was no more productive. When I called to appeal to his sense of fairness, he just cleared his throat uncomfortably. Your mother has her heart set on a traditional family Thanksgiving, pumpkin. And you're so good at all that cooking stuff. Dad, it's not about being good at cooking stuff. It's about the amount of work being dumped entirely on me. We appreciate everything you do, you know that, he said, sidestepping the issue completely. Tell you what, I'll make sure to carve the turkey this year. Wow. What a sacrifice. Calls and texts from my siblings confirmed they would be equally unhelpful. Ryan told me he was bringing his new girlfriend, who happened to be a food writer for a prestigious magazine. No pressure, abs, but maybe go all out on the presentation this year? He texted, as if I were catering his business dinner rather than cooking a family meal. Heather's contribution was equally infuriating. I'll totally help this year, promise. But I can only get there around 4 because I'm doing a yoga retreat that morning. Dinner's at 5, right? That gives me plenty of time. Then Aunt Laura called with her own list of requests. Abigail, dear, remember how my stuffing was a bit dry last year? I think if you add more butter, organic, grass-fed butter, of course, and maybe some more broth? Oh, and if you could make sure the turkey is free-range and hormone-free this year, I've become very conscious about my meat consumption. As the demands piled up, so did my anxiety. I created a shopping list that required trips to 5 different stores to accommodate everyone's preferences. I'd need to take off Tuesday through Friday of Thanksgiving week, using up the last of my vacation days for the year. My projected budget for ingredients alone was over $600, and multiple family members had already hinted that they forgot to bring their promised wine or dessert contributions last year. The rational part of my brain screamed that this wasn't fair. The dutiful daughter part whispered that disappointing my family would make me a terrible person. As the days ticked closer to Thanksgiving, the two voices battled it out, with neither gaining the upper hand, until the final straw arrived in the form of a casual text from my mother. Forgot to mention, we invited Michael Sullivan to dinner. He's back in town after his divorce and seemed lonely. You two always had such a nice connection. Michael Sullivan. My college boyfriend who had cheated on me with my roommate, leading to a devastating breakup and therapy sessions that lasted well into my mid-20s. That Michael Sullivan. And my parents had invited him to dinner. Without asking me. To the dinner I was expected to cook. For 30 people. Alone. The Michael Sullivan revelation came while I was pushing a cart through the gourmet section of Whole Foods, trying to find the specific truffle oil Aunt Laura had insisted was essential for the mashed potatoes. My phone pinged, I read the text, and suddenly the fluorescent lights seemed too bright, the store music too loud, and the air too thin. Michael. The man who had looked me in the eyes and said he loved me, all while sleeping with my roommate Jenna for 3 months. The man whose betrayal had shattered my self-confidence during my formative years. The man I had spent thousands of dollars talking about in therapy, working through trust issues that still affected my relationships. And my mother had invited him to Thanksgiving dinner like he was just some old friend who'd fallen on hard times. I abandoned my half-filled cart in the middle of the aisle and stumbled outside, gulping the cold November air. My hands shook as I dialed my mother's number. How could you invite Michael without talking to me first? I demanded when she answered. Abigail, don't be dramatic. That was years ago. His mother told me he's been having a rough time since the divorce, and I thought it would be nice to include him. Nice for whom, exactly? Not for me, who has to cook for and then eat dinner across from the man who cheated on me and broke my heart. Honestly, I thought you'd be over that by now. You're not getting any younger, and he's a successful dentist now. Maybe this is a second chance for you too. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In my mother's mind, my feelings were secondary to the opportunity to reconnect with a successful dentist, regardless of how he had treated me. I'm not cooking for him, I stated flatly. Don't be childish. You're cooking for everyone. He's just one more plate. That's when something inside me broke. Or perhaps it finally woke up. I wasn't just one more plate to be served up for family consumption. I was a person with feelings, boundaries, and a breaking point. And I had just reached it. I ended the call without another word and sat in my car, hyperventilating. The enormity of what was being asked of me crashed down all at once. 3 days of cooking. 30 ungrateful people. Dietary restrictions that contradicted each other. An ex-boyfriend who had betrayed me in the worst way. All while using vacation days that should have been spent actually vacationing. My phone rang again. Ryan this time. Hey, Abs, quick question. Jessica, my girlfriend, is super into seasonal cocktails. Could you maybe whip up some kind of signature Thanksgiving drink? With fresh cranberries and those herbs you grow? And maybe garnish with those little sugar-frosted cranberries you made that one time? Thanks, you're the best. I didn't even answer. Another text from Heather pinged through, change of plans. Can only help Thursday morning because I've got a hot date Wednesday night. But I'll definitely handle the table decorations when I get there. Thinking rustic chic this year. Can you pick up some mini pumpkins and gourds? And maybe some of that fancy ribbon from that craft store you like? Love you. The breaking point had arrived in spectacular fashion. I sat in my car in the Whole Foods parking lot, shaking with a combination of anger, exhaustion, and something else, a feeling I hadn't experienced in relation to my family before, clarity. I called the one person who would understand. Samantha, my best friend since college and the only person who had witnessed firsthand the emotional aftermath of both Michael's betrayal and my family's constant demands. Sam, I can't do it, I said as soon as she picked up. I can't cook Thanksgiving for 30 people, including my cheating ex, while everyone else watches football and complains that the gravy isn't hot enough. Then don't, she replied simply. What do you mean, don't? It's expected. It's tradition. It's bullshit, Abby, Sam interrupted. And you know it. Ask yourself this, if you couldn't do it, like, physically couldn't, if you broke both arms tomorrow, what would happen? They'd figure something out, I guess. Exactly. So they can figure it out. They just don't, because you always cave. But the disappointment will be temporary. And maybe educational. Your family needs to learn that you're a daughter and sister, not an unpaid personal chef and emotional punching bag. As her words sank in, I felt something shift inside me. A lifetime of putting others' needs before my own suddenly seemed less like virtue and more like a prison I had helped build around myself. What do I do? I whispered. What do you want to do for Thanksgiving? Sam asked. The question was so simple, yet no one had bothered to ask me that in years. What did I want? Not what was expected, not what would please everyone else, what would make me happy. I want to not be there, I admitted. I want to be somewhere warm, with people who appreciate me, eating food someone else cooked. Sam laughed. Well, that can be arranged. It's not too late to make other plans. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. A possibility that Thanksgiving didn't have to be another exercise in martyrdom. That I could choose myself for once. I started the car and drove home, a plan already forming in my mind. The panic that had gripped me in the store was subsiding, replaced by a calm determination. I had spent years being the person everyone could count on, the reliable one who never said no. It was time they learned I had limits. And it was time I respected those limits myself. Back in my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and opened my laptop. If I was really going to do this, bail on Thanksgiving, I needed an alternative plan. Something concrete enough to overcome the lifetime of conditioning that screamed I was being selfish. Flights to anywhere warm, I typed into the search bar. The results populated my screen: Miami, Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Diego. On a whim, I clicked San Diego. I'd always wanted to visit Southern California, and November seemed like the perfect time to escape the Boston chill. To my surprise, there were still seats available on flights leaving Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving. Even more surprisingly, they weren't astronomically expensive. A quick check of my credit card balance confirmed I could afford it. 6 hours on a plane suddenly seemed infinitely more appealing than 3 days in my parents' kitchen. But where would I stay? Hotels would be expensive on short notice, and spending Thanksgiving alone in a hotel room might just make me feel worse. Then I remembered Madison Clark. We'd been close in college before she moved to San Diego for a job in marine biology. We still exchanged birthday texts and occasional social media comments, but hadn't spoken properly in years. Would it be too presumptuous to reach out? I found her on Instagram and sent a direct message. Hey Madison, it's been forever. Random question, what are your Thanksgiving plans? I'm considering a spontaneous trip to San Diego to escape family drama, but realized I don't know anyone there anymore, except you. While waiting for a response, I researched time-off policies at work. My new position had some flexibility, and I had accumulated enough overtime in recent weeks to justify taking Wednesday through Friday off. I drafted an email to my boss explaining I had a family emergency and needed a few days to handle it. Technically, it wasn't a lie, my mental health and family boundaries certainly qualified as an emergency at this point. Madison's response came faster than expected. Abby. OMG yes, come to San Diego. I'm hosting a Friendsgiving at my place with a bunch of other transplants who can't go home for the holidays. It's super casual, everyone brings something, and we usually end up on the beach at sunset with wine. My couch is yours if you want it. Say yes. Her enthusiasm brought tears to my eyes. Here was someone genuinely excited to see me, asking nothing in return except my company. No elaborate meal demands, no guilt trips, no manipulation, just simple friendship. I booked the flight before I could change my mind. Wednesday, 7 a.m. departure from Boston, arriving in San Diego just after 11 a.m. local time. I'd have to leave for the airport around 4 a.m., but it felt worth it. I confirmed with Madison that I'd bring wine and help with whatever cooking needed to be done. The plan was taking shape, but the hardest part remained, telling my family. I knew a phone call would give them the opportunity to wear me down, to deploy the guilt and manipulation tactics that had always worked in the past. A text seemed too casual for something this momentous. After careful consideration, I decided on email, formal enough to convey seriousness, but creating enough distance to protect my resolve. I spent hours drafting it, wanting to be honest without being cruel. Dear Mom, Dad, Ryan, and Heather. After much thought, I've decided not to come home for Thanksgiving this year. I booked a trip to San Diego to visit my college friend Madison and will be spending the holiday with her. The expectations placed on me for Thanksgiving have become overwhelming and one-sided. Last year, I spent 3 full days cooking for 22 people with minimal help or appreciation. This year, with 30 guests, multiple dietary restrictions, and the surprise inclusion of my ex-boyfriend Michael, which I found deeply hurtful, I realized I needed to make a different choice for my own well-being. I love you all, but I need you to understand that I have my own life, my own career demands, and my own needs. I'm not refusing to participate in family gatherings forever, but I am asking for more balanced expectations and consideration of my feelings going forward. I hope you can understand, or at least respect, my decision. I'm happy to discuss alternative arrangements for future holidays when I return. Love. Abigail. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I did this, there was no going back. My family would be hurt, angry, and probably bewildered. Was I ready for the fallout? I thought about Thanksgiving morning, waking up in sunny California instead of my childhood bedroom. Walking on the beach instead of peeling potatoes. Being appreciated for my presence rather than just my cooking abilities. I hit send. Then I packed my suitcase, choosing sundresses and sandals instead of sweaters and cooking aprons. I tucked my swimsuit in, still tags attached from an optimistic purchase for a summer vacation I'd canceled to attend a family reunion. As I folded clothes into my suitcase, I felt lighter than I had in months. My phone remained ominously silent that evening. The email had been sent, but no responses had come through. Part of me was relieved for the reprieve, another part dreaded the explosion that would surely come. As I set my alarm for the painfully early airport departure, I felt a strange mixture of guilt and liberation. The guilt was familiar, I'd carried it my whole life, whenever I put my needs even adjacent to my family's. But the liberation was new, intoxicating, and worth protecting. I fell asleep surprisingly easily, dreaming not of turkey and stuffing, but of ocean waves and freedom. My alarm blared at 3:30 a.m., yanking me from a deep sleep. For a moment, I was disoriented. Why was I waking up so early? Then it all came rushing back. The flight. San Diego. My email to the family. My phone screen glowed with notifications, multiple missed calls from Mom, texts from both siblings, and a voicemail from Dad. I had silenced my phone before bed, knowing sleep would be impossible otherwise. With shaking hands, I checked the texts first. From Ryan, WTF Abby? Mom's having a complete meltdown. You can't just bail last minute like this. Who's going to cook everything? From Heather, OMG, you're actually serious? Mom is freaking out. Dad had to give her a Xanax. Thanks for ruining everyone's holiday. Super mature. My father's voicemail was surprisingly emotional. Abigail, it's Dad. I don't understand what's gotten into you. Your mother is beside herself. We've always counted on you. I'm very disappointed. Please call us and tell us this is just a misunderstanding. My mother had sent a barrage of texts escalating in urgency and guilt. Abigail Marie Reynolds, call me immediately. I can't believe you would do this to the family. 30 people are counting on this dinner. What am I supposed to tell them? Is this about Michael? I've already invited him. I can't uninvite him now. If you get on that plane, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms. The final text had come at 2 a.m., your grandmother is in tears. That last one was almost certainly a lie. Grandma Reynolds had moved to Florida 5 years ago and wasn't even coming for Thanksgiving. She was probably asleep at 2 a.m., not weeping over my holiday plans. I took a deep breath and called an Uber. I'd respond to everyone from the airport. Right now, I needed to focus on getting there on time. The ride to Logan was quiet, the driver sensing my preference for silence. The city was still dark, streets empty except for other airport-bound cars and early morning delivery trucks. I felt like I was escaping something, sneaking away under cover of darkness. At the security checkpoint, a moment of doubt hit me. Was I really going to go through with this? Abandon my family on their most treasured holiday? Leave them to figure out dinner for 30 people with less than 48 hours notice? My phone buzzed again. A text from Aunt Laura, Abigail, your mother tells me you're abandoning Thanksgiving. I've invited the Andersons specifically because they wanted to taste your famous pecan pie. This is very inconsiderate. And just like that, my resolve strengthened. Not a word about how I was feeling, or why I might have made this decision. Just disappointment that her friends wouldn't get to taste my pie. I stepped through the scanner and collected my carry-on from the conveyor belt. No turning back now. At the gate, I finally summoned the courage to respond. Not individually, I didn't have the emotional energy for that, but a group text to the core 4, Mom, Dad, Ryan, and Heather. I understand you're upset, and I'm sorry for the short notice. This decision wasn't made lightly or to hurt anyone. For years, I've taken on the entire burden of holiday meals while everyone else enjoys themselves. I've used vacation days, spent hundreds of dollars, and pushed myself to exhaustion to meet increasingly demanding expectations. Adding Michael to the guest list without even asking me was the final straw. I need this break for my mental health. I'm sure between the 4 of you, you can handle dinner. Consider potluck, catering, or reservations at a restaurant. I love you all, but I need to take care of myself too. The responses were immediate and predictable. Mom, I can't believe you're being so selfish. This isn't how we raised you. Dad, pumpkin, please reconsider. Your mother is not in a state to handle this. Ryan, great timing, abs. Really impressive maturity level here. Heather was the only surprise, honestly. Good for you. But your timing sucks. As they continued to text, a new message appeared from Samantha. Are you at the airport? Are you really doing this? I'm so proud of you. Her support gave me strength. I replied with a selfie at the gate, giving a nervous thumbs up. You've got this, she texted back. Remember, they're adults. They can figure it out. This isn't your emergency anymore. Boarding began, and I turned my phone to airplane mode with mixed feelings of relief and dread. For the next 6 hours, I would be unreachable, suspended between my old life of obligation and whatever awaited me in California. As the plane took off, climbing above Boston's morning clouds, I felt a weight lifting. Whatever happened next, I had taken a stand. For possibly the first time in my adult life, I had chosen my own needs over my family's expectations. Midway through the flight, when we had Wi-Fi again, my phone exploded with notifications. The group chat had evolved from anger to problem solving, though not without drama. Mom, I've called 3 caterers. All booked. This is a disaster. Ryan, checked with Whole Foods. They have pre-made dinners but need 72 hours notice. Dad, I've called around to restaurants. The Marriott has a Thanksgiving buffet with a few spots left. Heather, why don't we just make it potluck? I can handle desserts. Mom, potluck? For Thanksgiving? What would the neighbors think? The conversation continued in this vein, with my mother resistant to any solution that deviated from tradition, and my siblings and father actually stepping up with practical suggestions. I watched with a strange sense of detachment, as if observing strangers figure out a logistics problem. When my mother called as we were somewhere over Colorado, I surprised myself by answering. Abigail, this is your last chance, she said without preamble. Your father has found a restaurant with space for us. If you turn around at your layover, you can still be home for dinner tomorrow. We'll say you had a work emergency. Mom, I'm not coming home, I said firmly. I'm going to San Diego. I'm going to spend Thanksgiving with friends. And I'm going to enjoy it. After everything we've done for you, she said, her voice breaking, this is how you repay us? By humiliating us in front of the entire family? This isn't about repayment or humiliation, I replied, surprising myself with my calm. It's about boundaries and respect. I've given everything to family holidays for years. I need a break. Well, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms when you decide family matters again, she said coldly. I will always love you and the family, I said. But I need you to respect me as an adult with my own life. I hope you can understand that someday. I ended the call before she could respond, feeling simultaneously terrible and empowered. The guilt was still there. Years of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight, but underneath it was something new, self-respect. When the plane touched down in San Diego, the temperature difference was the first thing I noticed. Boston had been hovering around 40 degrees when I left, here it was a sunny 75. As I stepped off the jetway, I shed my jacket and instantly felt lighter. Madison was waiting at baggage claim, holding a handmade sign that read Abby's Great Escape. When she saw me, she squealed and ran forward, wrapping me in a hug that brought unexpected tears to my eyes. You actually did it, she exclaimed, grabbing my carry-on. I mean, I knew you booked the ticket, but part of me thought your family would guilt you into staying. They tried, I admitted as we walked toward the exit. They're still trying. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing since I landed. Well, it's officially vacation time, Madison declared. Phone goes on silent. Family drama gets put on hold. San Diego healing begins now. Her car was a beat-up Jeep Wrangler with the top down, the quintessential California vehicle. As we drove from the airport toward her apartment in Pacific Beach, the ocean came into view, sparkling sapphire blue under the cloudless sky. The sight of it made my chest ache with something like joy. So here's the plan, Madison explained as we drove. Today we're relaxing, beach, maybe a few margaritas. Tonight we're doing prep for tomorrow's Friendsgiving. Nothing complicated, just chopping veggies, making a couple of sides. Everyone brings something, so the workload is distributed. Who's everyone? I asked, suddenly nervous about meeting a bunch of strangers. Just a few friends, all awesome people who couldn't go home for various reasons. My coworker Tyler and his boyfriend Marcus, my neighbor Zoe, a couple from my surf club, Jasmine and Keith, and my cousin Derek who just moved here. Super chill group. Madison's apartment was a small one-bedroom a few blocks from the ocean. It was nothing fancy, mismatched furniture, plants everywhere, walls covered in beach photos and marine biology posters, but it felt more welcoming than my parents' perfectly decorated house ever had. "Couch is all yours," she said, tossing my bag into the living room. "Change into something beach-appropriate, and let's go wash off that East Coast stress." An hour later, I was sitting on the warm sand, watching surfers ride waves while Madison fetched us fish tacos from a nearby stand. My phone remained in my bag, though I knew the notifications were piling up. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I was fully present in the moment, not planning a meal or worrying about family expectations. "So," Madison said, returning with our lunch, "want to talk about the family meltdown, or would you rather pretend they don't exist for a while?" "The second option sounds amazing," I laughed, accepting a taco wrapped in foil. Though I should probably check my messages at some point, just to make sure no one's having an actual medical emergency because of me. Fair enough. But first, tacos and ocean therapy. The afternoon passed in a blur of sunshine and catching up. Madison told me about her work studying kelp forests, her recent breakup, her newfound passion for surfing. I shared stories about my marketing career, my promotion, my perpetually disastrous dating life in Boston. It felt like we were back in our college dorm, sharing everything without judgment. By sunset, I finally gathered the courage to check my phone. The barrage had slowed, and the tone had shifted. The most recent messages were surprisingly constructive. "Ryan, FYI, Mom finally caved. We're doing potluck tomorrow. I'm picking up ham from Honey Baked. Heather's doing desserts. Dad ordered sides from Boston Market. Even Aunt Laura is bringing something. Heather, crisis somewhat averted. Mom's still mad but dealing." Funniest part? Everyone was super understanding when we explained you couldn't make it. Like, nobody was shocked you finally snapped after years of being the holiday workhorse. There was even a grudging text from my father, "Your mother is adjusting to the change in plans. The Marriott was booked, but we're making it work. Hope you're safe in California." Only my mother maintained radio silence, which was her typical way of expressing maximum disapproval. I showed Madison the texts, and she clinked her beer bottle against mine. "See? The world didn't end. They figured it out." I can't believe how easy it was for them to adapt, I marveled. All these years, I thought I was irreplaceable. "That's the thing about being the responsible one," Madison said, watching the sun sink into the Pacific. "People put everything on you because they can, not because they have to. The moment you step back, they step up." Had to learn that one myself. That evening, we prepped for Friendsgiving in Madison's tiny kitchen. She turned on music, opened a bottle of wine, and gave me simple tasks, chopping vegetables, making a simple cranberry sauce, assembling a cheese board. Every few minutes she'd say things like, "That's plenty," or "Looks perfect," or "You're a lifesaver for helping." The contrast to cooking with my mother was stark. No criticism, no moving things I'd already arranged, no suggestions that somehow became commands. Just appreciation for whatever I contributed. This is how it's supposed to be, I realized aloud, watching Madison dance around the kitchen while stirring gravy. Holidays should be cooperative, not competitive. Thanksgiving Day itself dawned bright and beautiful. We took a morning walk on the beach, where families were already setting up picnics and volleyball nets. Back at the apartment, we finished our minimal prep while Madison's friends began arriving, each bringing dishes and drinks. Tyler and Marcus brought a perfectly roasted turkey. "We spatchcocked it so it only took 2 hours, they explained, as if this were no big deal. Zoe arrived with homemade rolls and 3 bottles of wine. Jasmine and Keith contributed mashed potatoes and green bean casserole. Derek showed up with pies from a local bakery. Within an hour, the apartment was filled with delicious smells, laughter, and the kind of easy conversation that happens when no one is walking on eggshells. We ate at a folding table set up in the living room, using mismatched plates and solo cups for wine. Before eating, Madison asked everyone to share something they were grateful for. When my turn came, I surprised myself by getting emotional. "I'm grateful for the courage to choose myself for once," I said, blinking back tears. "And for friends who make me feel welcome exactly as I am." The meal was imperfect by my mother's standards, the turkey slightly dry, the gravy a bit lumpy, the cranberry sauce from a recipe I'd invented on the spot. But it was the most enjoyable Thanksgiving meal I'd had in years, precisely because no one cared about those imperfections. Midway through dinner, my phone rang. It was Ryan. "Hey," I said, stepping onto the balcony for privacy. "How's it going there?" "Surprisingly okay," he admitted. "The potluck thing actually worked out. Nobody seems to mind that we're eating off paper plates." "Paper plates?" I gasped in mock horror. "Mom allowed paper plates?" "She didn't have much choice after she realized none of us knew where the good china was stored," he laughed. "Listen, I'm calling because, well, I wanted to apologize. I didn't realize how much we all dumped on you until I had to coordinate just the ham pickup. You've been handling everything for years, and we've been taking it for granted." His apology caught me off guard. "Thanks, Ryan. That means a lot. We should have been helping all along," he continued. "Anyway, the real reason I'm calling is that Mom wants proof you're alive and not lying face down in a ditch somewhere. Can I send her a picture?" I laughed and posed for a quick selfie with the ocean visible behind me, my wine glass raised in a toast. Ryan sent it to the family group chat moments later, along with, "Abby says Happy Thanksgiving from California." The responses flooded in immediately. "Dad, beautiful view. Saved you some stuffing for Christmas." "Heather, so jealous. It's freezing here." "Aunt Laura, please get the recipe for whatever you're drinking." Nothing from Mom, but I hadn't expected anything. When I returned to the table, Madison's friends were planning a sunset beach walk with the remaining wine. As we all trudged through the sand later, watching the sky turn spectacular shades of pink and orange, I felt a profound sense of peace. My phone buzzed with one final message, a photo from Ryan showing my family around our dining room table, plates piled high with food. Everyone was smiling, even my mother, though hers looked a bit forced. The table was set with a mishmash of serving dishes, some store packaging visible at the edges of the frame. It looked chaotic, imperfect, and completely functional without me. The realization was both painful and liberating. They didn't need me to have Thanksgiving. They never had. I'd been clinging to the role of indispensable family chef because it gave me a clear place in the family system, even if that place was unfair and exhausting. Looking at my California companions, new friends who valued my company over my cooking skills, I knew I'd made the right choice. For once, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Returning to Boston the following Monday felt like stepping back into another life. The city had transformed while I was gone, decked out in early Christmas decorations and dusted with the first light snow of the season. The temperature shock was brutal after 5 days of San Diego sunshine, but I felt equipped to handle it. Something fundamental had shifted inside me during my Thanksgiving rebellion. I dove back into work, grateful for the distraction of the holiday marketing campaign. The distance from family drama allowed me to process everything that had happened and decide how to move forward. My mother still wasn't speaking to me directly, communicating only through my father and siblings. I gave her the space she needed, knowing that forcing a reconciliation would only entrench the old patterns. 3 weeks passed before I felt ready for a face-to-face conversation. With Christmas approaching, I knew I couldn't avoid them forever, nor did I want to. Despite everything, they were still my family, and I loved them. I just needed them to understand me better. I drove to Connecticut on a Saturday afternoon, arriving at my parents' house just as dusk was falling. The familiar colonial looked picture-perfect with its tasteful Christmas lights and evergreen wreath. I sat in my car for several minutes, gathering courage, before finally walking up the front path. My father answered the door, his face lighting up with genuine pleasure. "Abby, we weren't expecting you." He enveloped me in a bear hug that made my eyes sting with unexpected tears. "Is Mom home?" I asked, stepping into the warmth of the foyer. "In the kitchen," he replied, his expression turning cautious. "She's been, well, you know how she gets." I nodded and headed toward the kitchen, the heart of our home and the site of so many holiday battles. My mother was at the island, methodically rolling out cookie dough, her back rigid with tension. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. She looked up, her face carefully neutral. "Abigail. What a surprise." The coolness in her voice stung, but I'd expected it. "I thought we should talk before Christmas." "Clear the air." "There's nothing to clear," she replied, cutting a perfect star shape from the dough. "You made your feelings quite clear on Thanksgiving." "Mom, please. I didn't bail on Thanksgiving to hurt you. I did it because I was hurting." She set down her cookie cutter with deliberate care. "You embarrassed me in front of the entire family. Do you have any idea what it was like explaining that my daughter had abandoned us for California?" The Sullivans were particularly confused. Of course she would bring up Michael's family. I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry for the timing and any embarrassment it caused. But I'm not sorry for finally setting a boundary. For years, I've been expected to handle all the holiday cooking without help, without appreciation, and without anyone considering my feelings." "We appreciate you," she insisted, her voice tight. "Do you?" "Because inviting my ex-boyfriend without even asking me suggests otherwise." A flicker of something, perhaps guilt, crossed her face. I thought enough time had passed. "That wasn't your decision to make," I said gently. Just like it wasn't fair to expect me to cook an entire Thanksgiving feast for 30 people by myself. My father had entered the kitchen and was hovering awkwardly in the doorway. "Your mother and I have been talking," he interjected. "We may have taken advantage of your cooking skills over the years." My mother shot him a look but didn't contradict him. "The truth is," he continued, "Thanksgiving actually worked out okay with everyone contributing. It wasn't up to your standards, of course, but it was nice. Different, but nice." "Ryan said the same thing," I noted. My mother sighed deeply, finally meeting my eyes directly. "It was chaotic. The timing was all off. The turkey was dry. The stuffing was from a box." A small, reluctant smile tugged at her lips. "But everyone ate. No one complained. Life went on." It was as close to an admission as I was likely to get. "I'm not refusing to participate in family holidays forever," I clarified. "I just need things to be more balanced. More collaborative." "We're thinking of changing things for Christmas," my father offered. "Everyone's bringing a dish. I'm handling the prime rib this year." "You?" I couldn't hide my surprise. My father's cooking expertise extended to grilling burgers and making exactly one type of omelet. "I've been watching cooking videos online," he said, looking slightly embarrassed but proud. "Your mother's been giving me pointers." I glanced at my mother, who shrugged. "He's not hopeless. Just messy." The conversation wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a beginning. We carefully navigated around the most sensitive topics, focusing instead on plans for Christmas that included more equitable distribution of responsibilities. My mother remained cooler than usual, but the deep freeze was thawing. Before leaving, I had private conversations with both Ryan and Heather. To my surprise, Thanksgiving had been eye-opening for them too. "I never realized how much work went into these dinners until I had to coordinate just one part of it," Ryan admitted. And then hearing everyone's comments, "Abby's stuffing was better," or "Abby would have remembered the cranberry sauce," it hit me how much pressure we've put on you all these years. Heather, typically self-absorbed, showed unexpected insight. When Mom kept freaking out about everything being perfect, I finally understood what you've been dealing with. No wonder you fled the country. It was just California, I laughed. Same difference, she replied. The point is, it made me realize I'd been a pretty crappy sister. I want to do better. Christmas that year was remarkably different. True to their word, my parents implemented a potluck approach. My father proudly carved the prime rib he'd prepared, while my mother focused solely on her signature desserts instead of trying to control the entire meal. Ryan brought his new girlfriend, who turned out to be lovely and insisted on washing dishes. Heather actually showed up early to help set the table and stayed late to clean up. I contributed a few sides and helped where needed, but spent most of the day simply enjoying my family's company instead of sweating in the kitchen. The meal wasn't perfect, my father's Yorkshire puddings were decidedly flat, and Aunt Laura forgot the dinner rolls, but no one seemed to mind. Most significantly, I noticed my mother watching me throughout the day, her expression thoughtful. As we were packing leftovers that evening, she finally spoke directly to the Thanksgiving incident. I was angry when you didn't come home, she admitted, carefully wrapping a slice of pie. I took it personally, like you were rejecting us. But seeing you relaxed and actually enjoying Christmas dinner made me realize, maybe you had a point. It wasn't a full apology, but from Margaret Reynolds, it was monumental. I love our family traditions, I told her. I just needed them to be sustainable for everyone, not just convenient for most and exhausting for one. She nodded slowly. I'm learning. We're all learning. In the months that followed, the new family dynamic continued to evolve. For Easter, we went to a restaurant, my mother's suggestion, surprisingly. For my father's birthday, we all contributed to a barbecue where he was actually allowed to relax instead of manning the grill the entire time. My relationship with my parents will never be perfect. My mother still occasionally slips into her old controlling patterns, and I sometimes find myself falling back into the role of overresponsible eldest child. But we're both making efforts to change, to see each other more clearly. As for Madison and the San Diego friends, they've become an important part of my life. I visited again in July, and we're planning a group trip to Mexico next year. Having friends who accept me without expectations has given me a standard for what healthy relationships should feel like. When Thanksgiving approached again this year, my mother called in September, a full 2 months ahead, to discuss plans. We're thinking of hosting at our house again, she said cautiously. But with everyone bringing something substantial. And we've cut the guest list to just family, 15 people, max. That sounds manageable, I replied. And Abigail? If you'd rather go to California again, we'd understand. We'd miss you, but we'd understand. It was perhaps the greatest gift my mother had ever given me, the freedom to choose without guilt. In the end, I decided to stay in Boston for Thanksgiving this year, hosting a small dinner for local friends who couldn't travel home, much like Madison had done for me. My family supported my decision, and we planned a video call for dessert time. The journey from family doormat to woman with boundaries hasn't been simple or linear. There have been setbacks and difficult conversations. But that impulsive flight to San Diego was the catalyst for necessary change, not just in my family's holiday traditions, but in how I value myself and my needs. So if you're feeling trapped by family expectations this holiday season, remember my story. Sometimes the bravest, most loving thing you can do, for yourself and, ultimately, for your family, is to set a boundary and stick to it. It might cause temporary pain, but it creates space for growth and more authentic relationships. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family during the holidays? How did it turn out? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if you're struggling with family expectations, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to prioritize your own well-being. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about navigating complicated family dynamics, and share with anyone who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you a holiday season filled with joy, authenticity, and healthy boundaries.